All right, good afternoon to all of you. It's 12:11. It's almost Farhan time, just 10 minutes later. All right, I'll start off with the statement that we issued late last night on the second anniversary of the October 7th attack. In the statement, the Secretary General said that 2 years ago today, Hamas and other Palestinian armed groups launched an abhorrent large-scale terror attack on Israel. On this day, he said, let us remember all those who were killed and suffered horrific violence. 2 years later, Mr. Guterres said that hostages remain captive in Gaza in deplorable conditions, adding that he has met with hostage families and survivors who share their unbearable pain with him. He said today, with even greater urgency, release the hostages unconditionally and immediately, end the suffering for all, put an end to the hostilities in Gaza, in Israel, and the region right now. He said that the recent proposal by U.S. President Donald J. Trump presents an opportunity that must be seized to bring this tragic conflict to an end. A permanent ceasefire and a credible political process are essential to prevent further bloodshed and pave the way for peace. His full statement is online, as are statements from the Emergency Relief Coordinator, Tom Fletcher, the Deputy Special Coordinator for the Middle East Peace Process, Ramiz Alabkarov, and the UNRWA Commissioner General Philippe Lazzarini, and many others. You will also see that last night we issued a statement on Yemen regarding the most recent arbitrary detentions by the Houthis of 9 additional UN personnel. Unfortunately, this morning our colleagues in Yemen told us that of the detention of 1 more UN staff. This brings the total number of arbitrarily detained UN staff by the Houthis in Yemen to 54, and this goes back to 2021. The Secretary General strongly condemns this arbitrary detention of UN personnel, as well as that of our partners, and the ongoing unlawful seizure of UN premises and assets in areas under Houthi control. These actions hinder our ability to operate in Yemen and to deliver critical assistance to those who need it. And the Secretary General remains deeply concerned about the safety and security of our personnel in Yemen. As we've been telling you constantly, their whereabouts remain unknown, and the Houthi de facto authorities have not permitted any physical access to any of them, despite repeated requests on our part. The Secretary General reiterates his urgent call for the immediate and unconditional release of all personnel from the United Nations, non-governmental organizations, civil society organizations, and diplomatic missions. They must be respected and they must be protected in accordance with applicable international law. The premises and assets of the United Nations are inviolable and must be protected at all times, consistent with the Charter and the Conventions on the Privileges and Immunities of the United Nations. We assure our colleagues that we will continue to work tirelessly and through all available channels to secure their safe and immediate release, as well as the return of UN agency offices and other assets. The Secretary General remains steadfast in our commitment to support the people of Yemen and their aspirations for a just and lasting peace. Turning to the situation on the ground in Gaza, I can tell you that our colleagues at the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs report that Israeli military operations, including airstrikes and shelling, continued across multiple areas, causing more civilian casualties, widespread displacement, and the destruction of critical infrastructure. Earlier today, a rocket was reportedly launched from Gaza towards Israel, though no casualties or damage was reported. Civilians continue to bear the brunt of hostilities, destruction, and mass displacement, with women and girls being the most at risk. The UN Population Fund and its partners reported yesterday that incidents of gender-based violence in Gaza surged 26% between July and August, with rising cases of sexual exploitation, domestic violence, and economic abuse. The renewed offensive in Gaza City has contributed to the collapse of referral systems for gender-based violence in the area, leaving women and girls without safe access and support. Despite the challenges, partners responding to gender-based violence in Gaza City, many of whom are displaced and impacted themselves, continue to deliver psychosocial support, case management, and other services wherever and whenever they can. OCHA reminds us that humanitarian partners face severe physical bureaucratic obstacles that prevent the delivery of life-saving assistance at the scale required. Inside Gaza, looting, including by armed actors, has further hampered humanitarian operations. Yesterday, 8 out of 20 missions coordinated by the UN with Israeli authorities were facilitated, and that included the collection of supplies from the Karim Shalom crossing. 4 missions were canceled by the organizers, and 4 missions were denied, which included the collection of food cargo that had entered Gaza. 4 other missions were impeded on the ground. These include collections of food cargo from the Karim Shalom, Karim Abu Salam, and Kisufim crossings, which were partially accomplished, as well as collection of medical supplies, which was fully accomplished despite various impediments. For a meaningful scale-up of humanitarian operations, additional crossing points must be open, and restrictions on the entry and movements of humanitarian aid inside Gaza must be lifted immediately. Currently, the limited number of humanitarian organizations and UN agencies are authorized by Israeli authorities to bring in supplies, a limitation that continues to undermine the scale-up of our response efforts. And moving north to our peacekeeping mission in southern Lebanon, in the past few days, UNIFIL tells us they have found several unauthorized weapons and ammunition caches in sector west of their area of operations. That includes mortar shells and a rocket in front of a tunnel. Peacekeepers also discovered submunitions and fuses in sector east. Meanwhile, on Saturday, a UNIFIL patrol reported that one individual had fired 2 shotgun rounds in the air in the vicinity of a patrol before driving away near Dibal in Sector West. And on Friday, Israeli Defense Forces personnel pointed green lasers several times towards UNIFIL patrol vehicles in Sector East. These incidents obviously jeopardize the safety of our colleagues, and they must stop. UNIFIL reports continued IDF military presence and activities in their area of operations. On Sunday, peacekeepers observed 5 IDF soldiers opening fire towards 3 individuals who were cutting iron rods from the rubble near Marwahin in Sector West. The peacekeepers saw the individuals leave the area subsequently. This morning, the Security Council held a briefing on cooperation between the United Nations and the African Union. Parfait Onanga Anyanga, the Secretary General's special representatives to the African Union, highlighted the strong collaboration between the 2 organizations, reiterating that the Secretary General has said that the UN and the African Union have developed a unique partnership rooted in the principles of complementarity, respect, and African ownership, a partnership that has become a cornerstone of multilateralism. Turning to peace and security challenges in the continent, he said security sector reform and governance remain key elements of the UN-AU partnership, particularly in addressing the root causes of conflict and consolidating peace. For her part, Martha Poby, the Assistant Secretary General for Africa, updated Council members on the implementation of Resolution 2719, which was conceived as a means to address long-standing gap in the African Union's peace and security architecture to better respond to conflict on the African continent. She said that as we reflect on the future of peace operations and seek efficiencies, it becomes even more evident that Resolution 2719 meets the moment. The resolution seeks to ensure that we leverage our respective advantages in keeping the pact for the future, the new agenda for peace, and silencing the gun initiatives. Those remarks were shared with you. A couple of notes from Africa to share with you. Our colleagues in the Democratic Republic of the Congo report that between January and the end of September this year, joint efforts by our peacekeeping mission and UNICEF led to the release of 410 children from armed groups in North Kivu and Ituri province. Those were 344 boys and 66 girls, which have all been referred to appropriate reintegration services. During the same period, 165 cases of child recruitment and use were verified by the UN, including 30 girls and 135 boys. Our colleagues tell us that these numbers underscore the continued vulnerability of children in areas impacted by conflict, and also highlights the urgent need for sustained protection measures including prevention, accountability, long-term reintegration support. As part of the mandate under the Children Armed Conflict Framework, the peacekeeping mission works to prevent and response to grave violations against children, including their recruitment and use by armed actors. The mission supports national authorities in implementing action plans, strengthening the capacity of security forces, and reporting violations to the UN's monitoring mechanism, all with the aim of promoting accountability and increasing child protection. And from regarding Chad, our emergency relief coordinator, Tom Fletcher, today released $1 million from the Central Emergency Response Fund for an urgent response to the deadly cholera outbreak in Chad. The new funding aims to contain the spread of the disease, mainly by improving access to water and sanitation, providing medical support and strengthening community engagements, and to raise awareness with the risks and encourage proactive prevention. The outbreak is impacting the eastern province of Wadai and Sila, which are hosting a large number of people displaced by the conflict in neighboring Sudan, as well as the central province of Gera. As of Sunday, more than 2,600 cases were reported and 150 deaths as well. These figures indicate a potential case fatality rate of 6%, far higher than the emergency threshold of 1%, as defined by WHO. The new funding complements $3 million previously allocated for cholera in Chad. And so far this year, the Central Emergency Response Fund has released $11 million to mitigate in response to cholera outbreak in 5 African countries, including Chad. OCHA remains deeply grateful to donors who support our Central Emergency Response Fund and other pooled fund, which allows for fast-track response efforts. Turning to Mozambique, our colleagues at UNHCR said they're deeply concerned with the rapidly growing displacement in northern Mozambique as a conflict that is entering its 8th year appears to be intensifying again. Nearly 22,000 people forced to flee from their homes in a single week last month. The new wave of displacement is among the largest recorded this year, with over 100,000 people already forced to escape. Since the conflict started in 2017, more than 1.3 million human beings have been displaced, caught between insecurity, loss, and repeated upheaval. For the first time since the start of the conflict, all 17 districts in the Cabo Delgado province have been directly affected. A simultaneous attack against the province sows fear and instability. And just to note, tomorrow at 11:15, there will be a briefing here by Carla Quintana, the head of the Independent Institution on Missing Persons in the Syrian Arab Republic. She will brief on the Secretary General's report to the General Assembly on the activities of her institution. At noon, I will have a guest, and that is Olukemi Ibikunle, a Nigerian corrections expert serving with the UN Peacekeeping Force in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. She is the winner of the 2025 Trailblazer Award for Women Justice and Corrections Officers. The award will be presented to her later that day by the Deputy Secretary General. It's an initiative established in 2022 by the Justice and Corrections Service of the Office of the Rule of Law and Security Institutions, and it recognizes outstanding contributions of women justice and corrections officers deployed as governments-provided personnel to UN peace operations. Voila. Edith Lederer, Associated Press.
Thank you, Steph. Is there any update on UN humanitarian preparations in case of a Gaza ceasefire? And is any senior UN official in Cairo monitoring the talks?
I'm not aware of any colleague in Egypt to monitor the talks. We obviously remain in touch with various parties. I mean, we've been calling for a ceasefire, calling for the reopening of the crossings, calling for the release of hostages for quite some time now. So we've been ready to go for quite some time. But we're obviously following the latest developments very closely.
And is there any update more granular from particularly Gaza City and the north on Israeli operations and the impact on humanity?
No, I mean, no more than I've given you. As I said, we've reported that there's been continued Israeli shelling and some military activity. Deji.
Last year in June, before the peace deal reached, the Security Council adopted a resolution to endorse the U.S.-backed ceasefire deal during Biden administration. Does the Secretary General would support such action for the Security Council to have another draft to support the current ceasefire deal?
Look, I don't want to say anything that would impact the delicate discussions, but I would say, obviously, any full-throated backing from the Security Council to peace initiatives carries a positive impact.
Sorry, I have several other questions. I'm sorry.
Don't apologize.
It's the second anniversary since the October 7th. Today, the Brown University released a report suggesting that after October 7th of 2023, U.S. gave military aid to $21.7 billion to Israel, and the spending for U.S. military operation in Greater Middle East region now is $33.7 billion. What is the reaction from the Secretary General on these numbers?
I haven't seen the report, but I will refer you back to the report that the Secretary General came here himself to launch on global military spending and the negative impact it's having on all sorts of other needs that we need around the world. And as we've always said, I think any member state, any country that exports weapons has a responsibility on how those weapons are used. That's it? Oh, okay. Benny.
Well, two questions. Actually, one is, you mentioned the shelling in Gaza. There were a couple of rockets fired from Gaza towards
I
Israel.
mentioned that as well, Benny.
Oh, I missed that.
Okay, well.
Damn. And 4 drones from Yemen that were intercepted
I think
today.
we have been very consistent in calling out and condemning the launching of drones and other missiles by the Houthis towards Israel.
To my real question, this is the season of the Nobel, and as you know, President Trump has been nominated by some heads of state as well as others. Other people have been nominated, including Greta Thunberg. Has anyone nominated the Secretary General for the Nobel?
I don't know. I don't work for the Nobel Committee, and I don't have the list of people who've been nominated. But I'm sure you can find that using the Google machine, Benny.
But has anyone nominated
I don't
the
know.
guy you speak for?
I know the guy who I speak for. This is not an issue that he has been focused on or paid any attention to.
Because past secretaries general
I'm
won
fully
the Nobel.
aware of that, Benny. But I mean, was there a question mark?
Yeah, I was wondering if everybody is anticipating the announcement, if we should anticipate
the announcement
head of the United Nations.
The announcement of the Nobel Peace Prize on a Friday in October always carries a lot of interest in this building.
So you don't expect the SG
Benny,
to get it?
I'm not putting money down on FanDuel about this. Please go ahead, and then I'll get you some.
Letícia Dag Hammarskjöld Fellow, representing O Globo from Brazil. So on another topic, yesterday, following a conversation with President Lula, President Trump was asked whether he would attend COP30. And he replied that he would go to Brazil at some point. So do you have any comment on that and on the exchange between the two of them and on the possibility of President Trump engaging with COP30?
Well, on COP30, obviously, all heads of states and governments have been invited. Participation by the major economies is critical. Obviously, we will see what happens. On the issue between President Lula and President Trump, it's not for us to comment, but we did note that they had a brief and what was described as a good meeting here at the United Nations, which we were happy to host, no matter how brief. Islam, please.
Thank you, Stéphane. I might have 2-3 questions as well. First question is,
I see you've gotten the hang of this briefing pretty well.
well, trying
no,
to
go ahead.
adjust.
Yes, exactly. Welcome. Go ahead.
Thank you. You mentioned about gender-based violence in Gaza surge 26% between July and August. Can you clarify this more? Is this has anything to do with occupational forces or only for Palestine among the
Well,
Palestinians?
I mean, it has to do.
And also,
the-
what is the reason? Any assessment on that?
Well, the reason is the reason for increased gender-based violence is the breakdown of society, right? And whenever there are moments where people, especially women and girls, are increasingly vulnerable, sadly, we see a rise in gender-based violence. Your second question.
My second question is partially, it was asked, but I will follow up. Regarding cost of war at Brown University report, almost U.S. spent $22 billion actually as a financial aid past 2 years. Now, I just would like to make a comparison as a journalist. Do you know how much UN and partners spent as a humanitarian aid in past 2 years in Gaza?
The last 2 years in Gaza, I don't have it off the top of my head, but what I can tell you is whatever we spent was not enough.
But any number?
I don't have, I'm bad at numbers to start with, so I don't want to estimate, but we can come up with a number of how much money we've spent on the humanitarian.
Thank you.
Yes, please, go ahead.
I'm reading the Secretary General's message to mark 2 years since the attack of October 7. The message begins with a strong focus on the Hamas attack on October 7, 2023. And while the reference to the humanitarian catastrophe and the suffering in Gaza come much later and in a very broader term. How does the Secretary General decide on this balance of emphasis and while we are marking this second anniversary?
Look, I will leave the, as we would say in French, the analyse de texte, right? The dissecting of the text to analysts and journalists. This was a message to mark the anniversary of a horrific attack, right? Horrific terrorist attack which led to the killing, the maiming, and suffering of people in Israel. This is what the Secretary General was marking. We have also, at the same time and in parallel, been consistent in calling out what is happening in Gaza and the suffering of civilians. And we are against the suffering of civilians, whether they be Palestinians, Israelis, or anyone else. Yes, please.
Thank you, Steph. The same question. This year marks the 30th anniversary of the 4th World Conference on Women, which was held in Beijing in 1995. And China will hold another global summit on women later this month. I wonder the SG has any plan to attend the summit, and what's his expectation for this summit?
No,
Thank
my
you.
expectation is that the Deputy Secretary General will be attending that summit. Yes, please. We'll go first round, then we'll come back, and then we'll go online. Yes.
Hi, I'm Asim. I'm a DEC fellow and journalist from Pakistan. My question is about the Iran. Iran's Foreign Office has released a statement that it will not hold any further talks with the West regarding the nuclear. So what is your response on that?
From our standpoint, we think the door to diplomacy is never truly closed. All right, let's go online. I'll go on. Abdelhamid, I feel a question.
Yes, I have a few. First, I want to commend my colleague who saw that this statement is very, very unbalanced. It's not analysis, it's fact. Now, my question, Steph, he saw the hostages, the Israeli hostages, and he shed tears on them. Didn't he see that the Palestinian people as a whole is a hostage by a brutal occupation for 58 years?
Abdelhamid, have you not read anything the Secretary General has said about what is going on in Gaza? I think his message could not be clearer. Your next question.
My next question, again, he mentioned the 1,250 Israeli victims, rightly so. But didn't he, or wasn't more appropriate to mention the 67,000 Palestinian killed since October 7?
The Secretary General has place in his heart for all victims. And he has been very clear on that. And I think Abdelhamid, I think we have not been shy, either from this podium or the Secretary General himself, in speaking out loudly about the atrocities that we see on a daily basis in Gaza. Do you have another question?
No, I asked if that statement indicates what you just said.
Everything should be seen as a whole. Okay, Deji, and then Evelyn, go ahead. Whoever, it doesn't really matter.
All right, I'll go first. First, just a response to Benny. The deadline.
No.
Okay.
No.
Anyway.
You will speak. You're not here to respond to Benny.
Okay.
If you have
Anyway,
a question, ask me the question.
Okay.
Okay.
So on Venezuela, it's been reported yesterday by New York Times that Trump administration now is cut off its diplomatic engagement with the Venezuelan authority. Does the Secretary General worried about an escalation?
Yeah, we of course are worried about an escalation.
Can I comment about Benny?
Evelyn.
In the reports from Africa, was there anything about West Africa and any kind of a follow-up to the Wagner
In
group?
which report?
Sorry, in the discussions today on Africa.
We've shared with you both speeches.
Well, it wasn't there.
Okay. Islam, then we'll close it.
I'm sorry if it's going to get a little controversial, but I would like to follow up Benny's question the other day about the flotilla, just out of curiosity. He asked if the interception of flotilla was legal or not. My question is, the blockade of Gaza is legal or not from the UN point?
Look, we have been very clear in the answers that we've given to you on the flotilla. You may not like them, and you and Benny can debate them. And as Tevier would say in Fiddler on the Roof, you both have interesting points.
That's not the quote.
No, you also have a point. Exactly. We'll check. I'll have Fahad's my Fiddler on the Roof quote master. We'll check with him. But in all seriousness, we've said what we've had to say. We've been very clear on the violations of international law. We've been clear on the fact that on the issues regarding the occupation, and I won't be dragged into it anymore. Enjoy the rest of the day.